I wanted to start off just talking about the present. Obviously, last year was a huge year for you. You won an ARIA, so really well done.
That was cool.
What's been happening this year? What have you been working on?
Yeah, it's already been a pretty crazy year. I've been I was just in the studio with Flume, you mentioned, just for a few days, which is pretty cool. The new tracks are insane, amazing stuff, and I've been working with Lisa Mitchell on her new album. That's producing. I'm also a producer, but in the past year, I guess I got known more for mixing. I've been working with a girl named Eve's the Behavior, she goes by. She has a track out called TV that I produced that I really love that one. And we're doing a couple of new songs. I did some stuff with St. Vincent. That was pretty amazing. She was in for Laneway, and I did some songs with her in a huge overseas dance act that I can't mention because it's probably secret, but it's going to be super cool. And I can never remember everything. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff
already. Yeah.
But yeah, I did some stuff with Touch Sensitive, another cool future classic guy. And it's
about the whole future classic thing. It's a bit of a running thing for you. Like, I mean, Chet Faker, Flume, Flight Facilities, now Touch Sensitive. How did the relationship with Future Classic and the label kind of?
Well, it started with Flight Facilities. They were looking for a place to record a vocal with Emma Louise, which was for the Two Bodies single. And I also, I'm signed to Cobalt Publishing, and it's part of the Future Classic. Future Classic is part of Cobalt, so on the publishing side. So this guy, Simon Moore, recommended that they talk to me. So I recorded Emma Louise for that song, and then basically just started a working relationship with the Flight Facilities guys, Jimmy and Hugo. And then that was going well. It turned from like doing a vocal recording, then it was like, oh, why don't you mix this song? Because I took them, first we started in one studio, then I took them into my studio and just started running things through just my analog. I have some really nice outboard gear and reverbs and delays and stuff, and it was like, oh, check out how cool this sounds. And I just started running different things through different boxes, and they were like, oh, why don't you mix this song? And I was happy to do that because I love those guys. And then I guess it was about probably a month later, then Jimmy texted me and just said, Nathan from Future Classic is going to call you about doing some mixing. And I was like, oh, cool. That sounds good. And then like about 30 seconds later, I got a call from Nathan saying, can you mix this Flume track? And I was like, oh, absolutely. When do you need it? And he said 5 o'clock. And it was probably noon that day. And I was like, well, when can I get the files? And he said, I'm sending them to you right now. And that sort of furthered the relationship. I guess because I've done a lot of mixing over the past few years, and I know I can meet a deadline. That's something I've learned to do over the years. So somebody says 5 o'clock, I'll get that thing done by 5 o'clock. So sometimes you'd rather have more time. But I guess when you do more mixing, you start to learn how to solve problems quickly. So that's something that I know how to do by now after just doing it for a long time. So then that turned into I musical directed the performance of that, recorded an orchestra. It was for the Arias, not the last year, but the year before. And I think I just connected with those guys. I think they have a great ear for music, and they have an excitement and a passion about music, which I also do. So I think Nathan and I have a real attention to detail that I think he noticed, because even with the Chet record, I was still up at all hours of the night, just making sure that everything was right, and with mastering and all of that stuff, I try to pay attention to every detail as best I can.
Speaking of the Chet record, how did that job kind of come about? I've heard a little rumor about a mix-off.
There was a mix-off. Oh, well, Nathan called me on that one, and he just said, do you know who Chet Faker is? I said, oh, yeah, he's cool. He's got a great voice. And he said, I've got these demos I want you to hear. I think this could be an unbelievable record, but we just need to push it a little further. And I said, please, yeah, send it to me. Or he actually said, how busy are you? And I said, oh, I'm pretty busy. And then he said, well, I'm going to send it to you, check it out. And I listened, and I think the order was like Talk is Cheap, maybe 1998 and Gold. And by the time I got to Gold, I was like, I remember about 10 seconds into Gold, I was like, fuck, this is really good. This is a really good record. And so I probably called him a few minutes after that, and I just said, well, yeah, let's do this. And he said, well, the thing is, the American label wants Tony Maserati to do it because Chet is signed to Downtown Records in America, and they like big names like that. And Nathan said, I think you can do it. I believe in you, but like you got to do a spec mix basically. And spec mixes are very stressful sometimes, especially for a project like that, because you have no contact with the artist. That was the other thing. He said, the other guy is Tony Maserati that you're mixing off against, who I don't know if you guys know, but he has his own plugins. He's a very successful mixer. He's probably got many Grammys in the tens or 20s, or I don't know.
It's kind of one of the top 10 names, I think.
He's been around for a long time, I'm old, but he's older. And but I wasn't going to back down from the challenge. I'm from New Jersey, New York. I'm like, I don't shy from a challenge. So I said, send me the files and I'll do it. And I just worked very hard on that mix, probably harder than I ever had worked on any mix up to that point. And again, you're kind of in a vacuum, which is, it's a great way to drive yourself crazy because you have to make every decision, and you can't say like, you can't turn around and be like, oh, is that too much reverb? Like, or is the hi-hat too loud there? Like, basically, yeah, the long story short, I worked hard on that mix, and then I got a call from Nathan. This was all, by the way, happening over like Christmas. It was probably it was maybe the 23rd of December. And when I'm not supposed to be doing business, I wasn't supposed to be out of this, in the studio at all. And then I think it was probably about the 22nd or 23rd that then Nathan was like, because he was on vacation too, so he couldn't talk to me either. When we're all out of the studio, it's like, I have a family, I have a wife and a son, and it's like when I'm out of the studio, I'm like, I make no calls. I try to focus on my family. So I could tell he was also doing the same thing. He was like, I can't talk, but Nick loves the mix. He's going to call you. And I was like, okay, cool. That's great. And that's the other thing about a spec mix is sometimes you give it and then you wait like 5 days to hear anything. And so anyway, yeah, he called me and said, to be honest, I really like this, which I didn't realize that he had, I think like 5 people had tried to mix Talk is Cheap before me, and he hated all of them. So I was like, oh, well, great, because that's what I want, is someone to like the mix that I've done. And then it was like, okay, so yeah, you'll do the rest of the album. And I was like, great. And then I think somebody told me like, okay, well, it needs to be done like January 10th. And it was December 23rd. And I only had the files to Talk is Cheap at that point. So then it's like, okay, so I'm working over Christmas and New Year's, and I think I went into the studio on the 26th, and it was at 3:01, and the lights were out. Like I couldn't even turn on the computer because they'd shut down the circuit breaker because everyone's supposed to be out. And I actually had to call Anthony, like, dude, I've got to mix a record like right now. And it was a great experience though.